Hi, Jean.
Hi, Valerie.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for doing this with me today.
Oh, you're welcome.
So, I'm just going to dig right in and get started so everyone can learn from you what it is that you have to say today.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
First question. What was your life and career like before using the program?
Before I started working with you, I relied pretty much on being in the right place at the right time to advance my career. And I just kind of hopped from one advantageous opportunity to the next until that kind of stopped working. At which point I kind of realized I need to change my approach. I needed to plan how and what I wanted my career to be and how it should unfold instead of just reacting to events and opportunities as they came along. Um, Career planning wasn't really something I was taught in school because I was a music major and we basically had, you're a performance music major, you're either going to be a soloist or you're going to play in an orchestra. And so there's not a lot of career planning that goes around that for Enterprise America. So I got to a certain point where I just realized that I needed help, and Valerie has and continues to help me learn how to plan my next steps and how to approach new opportunities going forward.
What is it that you think you were trying to solve with the program? You said that you had kind of hit a wall at one point.
Yeah, I really needed help getting past the wall. And moving my career development approach away from the reaction to and moving it toward proaction and an actual plan instead of just kind of letting things kind of happen as they would. Um, so I've been working for about 25 years now, and I really need that next steps guidance to put the next 25 years in place in a way that makes sense as opposed to just kind of going by the seat of my pants, which is probably never a good idea in one's career.
Do you think now we've made you more proactive?
Yes. Yeah. I stop and have to,
Think.
like, I still want to react, but I now I stop and make sure that I'm calling myself
Assessing.
out, or I get you to call me out before I just say, let's do this, because that's not a very good way to go forward.
Good.
You know,
Where did you start to search?
I started on the internet, and I was reading through like various different career guidance websites, from the old stuff to the new stuff. Back when there was a Monster, and then through the LinkedIn, and then Dice.com and all of that, and then some actual semi-professional where they at least were selling a service, and maybe some group coaching. But I realized it really was kind of hit or miss, and it wasn't really very customized to me. And I'm the type of person who really needs that custom guidance. So I have a large network, but the problem is that my network is pretty much all in one place, which is a vertical of publishing. So I'm cross industry in publishing, but it's all just publishing on the web. It doesn't matter if it's enterprise or scholarly or trade or what. Um, and at this point, I have to say, after 25 years, I'm kind of burned out on publishing. Um, there's not a lot of directions for me to go where I will actually grow and learn rather than just do something different than I've done before.
Do you think now you feel like you have the direction
Yeah,
and you're
yeah,
seeing the growth come?
I'm seeing the growth part of it because I need to know about more than one. I mean, if I'm going to try to make a shift from publishing to another market, another field, or say like I want to go work for a pharmaceutical company or something like that, then I kind of I can't rely on my network as much. So I've got to be smart in how I plan and who I introduce myself to and what opportunities I'm looking at. Um, so I wouldn't say that I'm 100% burned out on publishing in the web or on the web, but there's just not much further opportunity for me at this point. And I mean, I could do, this and that and pick up, oh, hey, here's a new trend or something like that, but it's not inspirational anymore. And I kind of need something that is going to inspire me to do my best work.
What do you think made the service stand out to you, especially thinking in terms of wanting, helping you want to do your best work now?
So when I would first started thinking about needing to make a move, I was not a good place, and I really needed to get out of that. And I first encountered Valerie's services through advertisement on social media. I can't remember if it was LinkedIn or Facebook, or
You probably found my Facebook ad.
it it may have been a Facebook ad through like, a women in technology type of group or something. Um, but the message that Valerie was putting forward and the value proposition of her services really kind of resonated with me as a woman in the middle of my career who's having a hard time establishing next steps. And I'm also of an age where it starts getting more difficult. And that prompted me to call Valerie, and we had a good introductory call. And that prompted me to sign up for the first iteration of her services that I went through. And it was actually really what I needed at that point. And it helped that Valerie and I clicked personally.
Yeah, we
have
did.
common interests and like-minded opinions. It's always good to work with somebody who has common interests and like-minded opinions, even if they're going to hold your feet to the fire and make you accountable for stuff that you're not used to being accountable for.
What do you think made you happiest about working together, other than our like-minded opinions and
Mm. Results. You have to listen and you have to follow the directions. She's the expert. She knows how to get results. And I saw results out of the work that we did together. The other part of it, which was not as expected, but not unwelcome at all, was that Valerie became a good friend. And that really helped me in this past year. 2020 kind of was bad for everybody, but I was in a car accident in February in 2020, and I spent pretty much the rest of the year recovering from that car accident and trying to think about the approach I wanted to take when I went back to work. So now I'm in a situation where I'm getting ready to go back to work, and I'm working with Valerie to put that plan in place of where I'm going to focus and target my submissions for particular positions and opportunities.
So following up on your question, on your answer to results, I think that that's something everyone's always interested in.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about your happiness with your results? The first time around, we're still working on the second time, but
we're working through the second time at this point. But the first time around, specifically, I was taught how to negotiate without fear, and having never learned to negotiate before, I was definitely afraid of it. And which is very strange because I'm usually not afraid of anything, but it was like a money thing, so be afraid. And there's so much wrapped up with money because it's like, it's my living, my everything. So the first thing that happened was when I had a really good opportunity. I got an offer, and it was way below what I could afford to work for and still pay my bills. And I went and I learned how to negotiate, go back to them, and I wound up getting a 37% increase in the offer that they wanted me to come and work for them. And there were initial benefits and other benefits to that as well. And I was stunned. I think we both were. But
We were both
I was like, whoa, okay. Yeah, we're taking that job. But that was huge right there. It was that one result is, kind of like one of the biggest reasons we all go to work. And then the other part was learning to recognize when I have been overworked and underappreciated, or just kind of treated like a doormat. I'm not a doormat type of person. So I usually have a pretty good idea when I'm being treated poorly. But it's a work situation. And so because it's a work situation, your livelihood, etc., you're a lot more tempted to kind of put up and shut up, and just kind of go with it because it's work. There's a paycheck attached. And that wasn't really working very well. I needed to kind of realize that just because there's a paycheck attached doesn't mean that it's the right place for you. It doesn't mean that it's going to work out for you 5, 6 years down the line.
Even 10.
Yeah. Well, I don't even think about 10.
It doesn't work for 5. It's not going to work for 10.
I mean, yeah, exactly. I don't think past probably 3 or 4 at this point, which is very, very different than how I grew up with 2 parents who both worked for like 25 and 35 years, and for the same place, no less. I was taught that you went to work and you stayed there. And then that gradually started to change over the 25 years that I've been working, where it was like, no, you maybe stay maybe 5 years. And now it's like maybe 2 years. So I definitely don't ever want to be perceived as a job hopper, because it still kind of has bad connotation to it. But it's a very, very different world than what I was raised in. So I kind of have to make my adaptation toward my level of comfort, regardless of the level of comfort for other people in my life, like parents who still worry about this. Why is she leaving that job?
So do you think, that we had solved the initial problem the first time around?
Oh, absolutely. We got me out of a bad situation. We got me a 37% increase in pay over the initial offer, and that was still a good, like, $10,000-$15,000 more than what I was making in the bad situation. So, I mean, I came out all around in a better situation from that.
What do you think exceeded your expectations?
I think it was probably your approach to teaching negotiation, among other things. I mean, it's not rocket science. I just had to get over the fear factor more than anything, because the inherent everyone must like me approach that I kind of accepted as necessary to keep my career going, and not necessarily just for thriving even, but just going. I had a couple of examples in my life that showed me what not to do as opposed to what to do. And in some places, I think I tried to overcompensate on the what not to do. And I didn't know enough about the what to do. So I would say that I'm learning that now. negotiating a salary 37% above the initial offer with my last opportunity was so completely unexpected. And it totally exceeded my expectations and pretty much everybody's expectations. So I would say that my investment in Valerie's coaching program at that point more than paid for itself.
Do you feel as though, yeah, do you feel as though that, if you were given a chance to do it all over again, you would?
Oh, yeah. I mean, your dedication to your clients was another thing that exceeded my initial expectations. I really didn't sign up for career coaching looking for somebody who cares about what happens to me as a client as deeply as you do. And that differentiates you from the, it's all about business career coaches out there. And in addition to the differentiation, it's just a very much more customized to who I am, what I'm about, what my personality is, what my sticky points are, and
getting to know you as
really
a person.
Important. Yeah, it's really important because it helps me understand my own tendencies to react and how I react, and it helps me approach different situations for the better. You're not going to get that in an off-the-shelf program or out of a book.
Do you think this benefited your career trajectory overall?
Yeah. I think you have an egalitarian approach. You treat each client as an individual, first and foremost. And I was lost in the weeds, career planning options, and I absolutely thought it was incredibly helpful to have somebody kind of like plan and help me walk the path, and not just kind of a path that was cluttered with a bunch of shrubbery. Could I have figured some of this stuff out myself? Maybe, but I wouldn't have gotten the benefit of having someone reflect my situation back at me. I wouldn't have been able to hold myself accountable the way a second party can. We spend way too much time chasing paychecks over being accountable to ourselves. That's something I've discovered after 25 years. I mean, I've been working for 25 years. What do I have to show for it? Well, I have a roof over my head and I can afford to eat, but, what do I have to show for it in terms of personal satisfaction? Am I happy with the work that I'm doing? Is that work that I want to continue doing? It's really easy to fall into a rut of not paying attention to things that are important to you when there's a salary attached. It's just not a very healthy approach.
Do you think you were kind of taught now to go from being a passenger and kind of being more passive in the whole thing to being more of a driver to all of this and taking charge and knowing when something is wrong and standing up and saying, no, I need to do something?
Absolutely. I think there's a couple of things that happen. One is when, obviously when I started out and I got my first real professional job, I was the baby of the company. Literally, I was the youngest person in the company. And I got really used to being in that you're younger than everybody and you have everything to learn mode for a long time. And for obviously the first 5 years of my professional career, I was, groomed, mentored, and taught, and that worked really well because I had people who wanted the company to succeed. They saw something in me and wanted me to succeed. But that's not going to happen at every company. And as you get older, there are certain things that are not going to agree necessarily with your worldview and your experience to date. You may start experiencing things where it's like people are going off in one direction, but you're like, wait, wait. My experience says that might not be the direction that you really want to move in. And then there's a lot of issue with dealing with people who are just not nice people. And you have to learn how to not just take it, because that doesn't help you at all as a person if you just sit there and let somebody dump on you. And I was put in a situation where somebody tried to dump on me pretty hard, and I called them out on it. And was that a really good decision to make if I had wanted to stay in that position? No. Was it a really good decision to make in terms of where I was in my life and what I was going to put up with, in terms of how I let people treat me and speak to me? Absolutely. It needed to happen. And at that point, I couldn't just sit there and take it. Chasing paychecks, it's not a really healthy thing to do. It's not, a healthy approach to work and life and in reality. You can only do it for so long, and then you burn out. And if you burn out, you're not much use to anyone.
I think
and that's where Valerie steps in. That's where Valerie steps in.
That's what a lot of people don't learn.
Yeah.
Is when they're burnt out, they need to stop. I think people don't recognize the sign to burn out.
Yeah. And that's what you helped me make heads or tails of where I was burned out. And what clarifying my opinions and my views and my approach and context of me and what was important to me, and me, the whole, not just the person who pays the bills. So that was a very important learning step.
You are an individual. You are a human being.
Yeah, well, I didn't know you were allowed to be a human being at work. I mean, I was lucky enough to be in situations where when I had my first few opportunities, I worked in situations where it was a foregone conclusion that I was treated as a human whole, and I had the stellar luck of having really good managers for the first few years of my career. But you can only go so far before you're going to run into that first one that you don't know what to do with or how to act around.
Situations come and situations go, and then there's jobs that come and jobs that go. But putting yourself first and putting your career first can benefit your life.
Yes.
Having said that, why do you think others...
We'll be hanging up on that. You want to
start
real life,
it happens.
Yeah.
My phone rang during a video yesterday. Why do you think others should invest in a program?
So, all right. So let me go back to 2020, which was no stellar year for anyone. I had the additional challenges of having been in a car accident in February. So it was really, really early in the year. And I had some recovery to do, and I had a lot of time to think. And I re-upped with Valerie because I knew that I needed to take the next step in my career trajectory. I knew that this is an experience I've had sick time before, but I've never been considered, disabled, or, taking as much time off as I took in 2020 for health reasons. And I definitely don't know what it is to navigate the going back to work. I don't have any kids of my own, and so I never took off time to have a kid or anything like that. So I really don't know what this going back to work is all about after a break, and how the approach required differs from simply moving, from one job to the other with maybe a vacation in between. That was huge right there. It's unmapped territory for me. And then I'm sitting there, I've been in an accident. I clearly had some healing I had to do that was not just going to happen immediately. I was pushing 50. I was working in a position that didn't unfold the way that I had anticipated or was originally planned by the people who were employing me. So I needed someone to help me figure out the direction and guide me again. And the first person I thought of on that list of people that I know was my friend Valerie. So, and I needed that because, Valerie's going to give me a good shove in the back when I need it. She's not going to back down from me when I'm stupid and stubborn, and I can be ridiculously stubborn. And I'm an extremely independent person, so asking for help is not something I do well. Not the greatest combination, but Valerie gets that signal through the noise for me, and that helps me kind of like get over myself. And getting over myself is huge, so hey, bonus.
So for you, you think it's a combination of results plus getting over yourself?
Yeah. Results, getting over myself, learning, and kind of, there's some behavior modification I think that's happened along the way.
Oh, yeah.
Learning about like when to sit down and shut up as opposed to stand up and say, I don't think you should talk to me that way. There's sometimes a fine line between the two of them, and you kind of have to figure it out and what's right for your situation at the time. And that's what I've had to do in the last year. So, I mean, it just made sense that, I needed help a second time around. Situations change. That's called life. I mean, everybody knows after 2020, situations change. And this is not something I could just do in my own vacuum-sealed world of experience. I needed input from outside, and that's what you provide.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and your insights. I'm sure this will help plenty of people.
Sure. I hope so. It was pretty big for me to admit that I